Hi, Bill Jones from Turntastic Wood Designs. When I first moved into this house, not long after I moved in here some 25 years ago, I built this bench in the garage, and it was to be a workbench. And it worked okay for a while. But since I've gotten back into woodworking a few years ago, I haven't really used it. It has generally just become a catch-all for junk. So that's not the best situation. At the same time, I've got a miter station that I finished just a few months ago that works okay, but it's really not in the best spot in the shop. It's right in front of my lumber rack, which makes it very inconvenient, or in front of my sheet storage rack, I should say, which makes it very inconvenient to get my sheet goods. So I'm going to try and solve both those problems at once and turn this bench into a miter station. I'm going to model it somewhat after Jay Bates' design. Now mine won't be nearly as nice as Jay's when it's done, but it'll give me some of the general ideas. I'm going to make this video in several parts. So this is the first part, and come along and see how far I've gotten. And the first step is to take the big mess that's on the bench, clear it off, and make a big mess somewhere else. I had a piece of trim that I needed to pop off the front of the bench. I decided where I wanted the miter saw to sit on the bench, and I cut out a section of my bench top. I popped the top out to be used later, and that support stud is going to have to be moved over to the edge of where I cut. So I cut it out and reinstalled it where it needs to be. Using a reciprocating saw, I cut out the front rail of the section where the miter saw is going. Now I attached a new support underneath the old bench. And the piece of top that I cut out earlier can now be attached to its new home. Well, now I have an area in the bench that is dropped down such that the bed of the chop saw is even with the rest of the bench. So I have a nice long surface where I can cut long pieces. But the problem I have now is, as this is a sliding compound saw, it needs a lot of depth. And to work right, I need to come all the way out here. So my bench isn't wide enough. So now I need to add onto the front or widen this bench. I built a 2x4 frame. And I attached that frame to the front of the existing bench using glue and pocket screws. I cut strips of 3/4 inch plywood and laid them down as a surface on top of the newly extended frame. With the bench now cantilevered out about an extra foot, I was concerned that putting some weight on it, like the saw and a vise, which I'll talk about in a minute, would make the bench bend down, and indeed that was a problem. So I went ahead and added these legs, just very simple 2x4 legs to hold it up, and then I anchored those legs to the concrete floor so that when I kick them, they won't move and I'll bust my toe, which is what you want. The next thing I did that turned out I think turned out okay, was on this very end here. I sometimes use a metal vise and sometimes don't. So I just set it up to where I can take this small bit here and flip it over and use my vise when I need to use a vise, and flip it back over and have it out of the way when I'm not using it. So that's as far as I've gotten. I still have a lot to do. I have to consider a fence system. I'm going to put some cabinets up behind here. a lot of drawers and storage to try and clean some things up, and of course dust control. So I'll be working on all those things in the future, and look for future videos. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please like and subscribe, and share with your friends. Subscribing really helps me out. And as always, thanks for watching.